Why is it that the religious, when they claim to be responding to atheists, they're really only proving just how ignorant they actually are? I spend more time just explaining basic stuff that they should have learned in high school, that they should have researched on their own, but they never ever do that, right? So this looks like it's going to be another one of those, and I'm sorry about that up front. Today, we're going to do a video by Daily Corvid, and something tells me this is going to be painfully dumb. Every time we do a religious video where they are pretending to talk to atheists, it is, and most of them aren't even talking to atheists. They're just talking to other theists and playing make-believe. But I suppose we'll give this a shot and see how it turns out. So strap in, because this one looks like it's going to be bumpy.
Atheists often argue against the holy man, the religious Christian.
Yes, because I just had a conversation in the comments of a video where a theist was complaining that atheists hate God. I used the Gandhi quote, "I like your Christ, but I do not like your Christians." There's no evidence that any gods actually exist, but a lot of Christians, they are just dicks. I've said many times before that if all Christians, or all theists really, Christians and otherwise, would just shut up and leave the rest of us alone, I'd never bring up atheism again. Atheism is a complete non-issue. It really only comes up because Christians, especially Christians in the Western world, but I'll say it about any theist, they're all just assholes. Piss off and we won't have any problems. But they refuse to do that, don't they?
And they say, don't make claims to me that you can't validate.
And what's the problem with that? Because just a few minutes ago, I had a theist in the comments of one of my videos pull the standard line. "Oh, I can do it, but you just wouldn't believe me." Then that makes your case invalid, doesn't it? This is just an excuse, and I said so, because the religious know, at least on some level, that they've got nothing. At least, they've got nothing that will impress anyone that doesn't come at it from their pre-existing religious perspective. If we don't already believe on faith, then we are not going to take them seriously, and somehow, that's our fault, not theirs. No, sorry, that's not how this works. It is your fault because you are believing things that are not demonstrably true. It's the demonstration that matters, and they've got nothing. But what else is new, right?
The onus on validating a claim is on the claimant.
Agreed. The burden of proof is always on the person making the positive claim. In fact, we're doing a long, rather disjointed series of videos on that right now, aren't we? So, is this just going to be a whole sequence of stuff I agree with, but that doesn't actually apply to most theists and their beliefs? I mean, his video title is Atheism, Claims, Evidence, and Ignorance. But we're not the ones making any claims. We have all the evidence on our side, and we're not the ignorant ones. So what's the problem? I guess all we can do is just keep watching and find out.
Therefore, if you make a claim, you have to validate it. Otherwise, it's false.
No! Otherwise, it's unsupported, and no one has any responsibility to take your claim seriously. And in fact, you shouldn't take it seriously either. There are certainly claims out there that cannot, at least at present, be validated with evidence. That makes them undemonstrated hypotheses. Certainly, you can go and look for corroboratory evidence for them, but the time to actually believe that they're true is when you have that evidence in hand and not one moment before. So if the religious can't back up their claims, and they can't, their claims are just hypotheses, and they shouldn't be believing in them before they can be evidentially supported any more than we should. And the typical theist response to that is, "You can't tell me what to do," because they're children. That's a childish response. And I trust nobody is surprised.
But this is very illogical, and it shows that their theology is weak.
We don't have a theology, and it's not illogical at all. In fact, it's the only logical position one can have. Don't believe bullshit until you can back it up with evidence. Now, I get that the religious don't like that because that does away with their entire theology. If you can't prove it's true or likely true with evidence, then you've got no business believing in it at all. And since we know that the religious can't prove anything, and in most instances they're not even trying to do so, their entire faith collapses into a pile of idiocy. That's what they're desperate to avoid admitting. But that doesn't mean it's not true.
Let me explain. If I make a claim to you, say I just woke up just a minute ago to make this video, and I say, I had a dream. In my dream, I saw an elephant with 7 heads.
Okay, so what? That was a subconscious brain state that you had. Big deal. Because this is where we really get to the burden of proof. If you are claiming that happened, then you need to back it up. If the person you're talking to cares, and that actually matters, because if they don't care, they're not going to be calling for your support. But assuming that they do, you either support your claim or the person that you're talking to just walks away, not being convinced by your claim. Because there are several elements going on here. First, you are making a statement about objective reality. Not that the elephant with 7 heads is real, but that you had a dream, which is a sequence of brain states that occur when you are in deep sleep. How much do you care if other people believe you? Probably not a lot. Secondly, you have to find someone who's going to challenge your claim. That's probably not going to be as easy as you think. At least I wouldn't bother because I really don't care. You had a weird dream? Okay, good on you, so what? I have weird dreams all the time. I care no more about your elephant dream than you likely care about anything I dreamt about last night, so what difference does it make? We go our separate ways, not giving a damn, and you probably don't bring it up to anyone else ever again. This is really a bad analogy when you think about it, but we'll go with it. Not that I suspect it's going to matter.
I'm making a claim. I cannot ever validate that claim to you. The best I could do is tell you it.
And I don't care about your claim. Your claim doesn't impact me one bit. Go have all the weird elephant-related dreams you want. I couldn't care less. And I doubt anybody cares, although that's up to the individual. I doubt that you care out in the audience right now. This is so absurdly irrelevant that it's a complete waste of time even talking about it. Why? Because we all know that weird dreams exist. We all have them. That's mostly all I ever have. So what? We understand brain chemistry. We know how and why dreams come about. You might not be able to prove to me that you had that one specific dream. Not that I care, but you can certainly prove to me that you have dreams. We've got machines that we can hook you up to and read your brain waves. We know that's real. I honestly don't think we're that far off from being able to read minds anyhow. We already have machines that can tell what you're thinking about. We already have machines that can read your emotions. We can see what's in your head. We have machines that can translate your brain chemistry and blood flow into text using an fMRI. It's only going to get better from here. Maybe someday we'll be able to watch your dreams while you're hooked up to a machine. Who knows? I don't know that that's really very worthwhile, but hey, who knows? I'm still not sure why anybody cares about any of this, so maybe he'll explain.
There's no way I could ever prove that to you. Does it make it false that I can't validate it?
No, but it doesn't make it true either. I could just make something up, like I dreamed about purple unicorns last night. I didn't, at least I don't think I did. I don't remember. And most people don't remember the vast majority of their dreams, but I could say I did, and the fact that I can't prove it to you doesn't mean that I did. It doesn't mean that I didn't either. It doesn't mean anything. Nobody is going to care, and I'm probably not going to care enough to relate the story more than once or twice regardless. So what? I'm still waiting for a point.
No, it doesn't. Dreams are not false. you could have a dream tonight and then tell me about it, and I would go, oh yeah, that sounds cool, and never know whether you were telling the truth.
Because it doesn't matter. It's a completely irrelevant event that nobody cares about, not even you. Maybe some random dream researcher out there might take some momentary interest, but they don't care about your elephant dream any more than anyone else does. That you have dreams? We can prove that. Easily, in fact. That you had that specific dream? Not at the moment, but someday? Who knows? What difference does it make? I don't care if you picked your nose last Thursday. That doesn't mean I'm making a claim that you didn't do it. Just because you can't prove it to me, that doesn't mean anything. At least, I hope that you can't prove it to me. Because, I don't want to see that. So anyway, what the hell is your point?
But you will know that it's true, and I will have to take your truth on faith.
Nope, not at all. I don't care about your elephant dream any more than you would care about my unicorn dream. It is completely irrelevant, and that's the point that he's not understanding, because I don't think he cares. Because here's something else. Even you don't know that you had that dream. That's not how memory works. Your brain constantly reconstructs experiences, even experiences that you've never had. There are far more people who remember being at Woodstock than were ever there. Your memories are only as good as the last time you recalled them, because the next time you think about it, your brain is going to be filling in all the holes with stuff it just made up. So maybe you had a dream about an elephant with 4 heads, and your brain just invented a couple more heads. Maybe it was just a normal elephant. Maybe it was a goose with 7 heads, and your brain changed it. You will never know. I get that this isn't really relevant to his story, but this just goes to show just how little these people actually know about the things they're talking about. He goes on and on and on about something that he simply doesn't understand, and eventually he's going to try to make this about God or something similar, and it'll all fall apart. That's why I'm trying to keep him honest. And that doesn't work very well with the religious, does it?
So we know faith is useful for a discovery of truth where we cannot validate a claim.
No, it's not. It's utterly useless. So let's go where I think he's headed, or at least where I think it would be interesting if he headed that way, because you get people claiming that they had an experience with a god. Well, how do they know that? They had an experience of some sort, true, but how have they validated that it was actually with a god? They can't. They don't. They just really like the idea. But liking the idea doesn't make it true, and that's the problem. Maybe he liked the idea of his elephant dream. I don't know. Maybe he had an elephant as a child. Who knows? Who cares? Actually, it might be kind of cool if he did, but for the sake of this discussion, it's irrelevant. Even if he did, that doesn't mean that a 7-headed elephant exists outside of his own imagination, any more than thinking that you had an experience with a god means that said god exists outside of your head. If you want to say that you imagined a god, fine. Cool for you, I guess. That means absolutely nothing to anyone else. We can prove that dreams are real. We can't do that with gods, at least not so far. Come up with proof for your imaginary friends, and then we'll talk. Somehow, I don't think he's going to be able to do that, do you? Because this is the real problem that we have with the religious. They will say, hey, I had this experience and God done it. Well, how have you proven that God done it? Even to yourself. This is the very basis of, it seems to me, theology. Because they just want it to be true. They can't prove that it's true. And it's the proof that actually matters. And if they can't prove to me that what they're saying is true, I'm not going to take them seriously. And neither should you.
But it's not as if this claim cannot be validated.
You just said it couldn't be. Make up your mind. At present, I am aware of no method that could validate that specific dream, especially in retrospect. We can't go back and figure out what you dreamed before. If you went to bed hooked up to a bunch of machines, it might be a little more believable, at least hypothetically, that you could validate it, but since that nugget of joy hasn't come to light in your story, I'm going to be skeptical. You notice a lot of these stories that change dramatically in the retelling though, right? Just give it to us straight the first time without having to fill in all the holes along the way. I don't think we should expect them to be able to do that, but hey, that would sure be nice, right?
If you take your prayers to Jesus, Jesus will answer you.
Prove it. That was kind of a quick transition from dreams to Jesus, wasn't it? However, you can't validate that either. We could experiment, and we have, and the data clearly shows that prayers work at a rate indistinguishable from random chance. So that's just bullshit right there. However, even if it could be shown that prayer worked, and it can't be, but let's play make-believe for a minute, but even if you were praying to Jesus, that doesn't prove that Jesus made your prayers come true. People pray to all kinds of gods worldwide, and they all fail equally well. So if they started working, hypothetically, then you can't say which god, if any of them, is actually making them come true. Maybe the invisible, intangible, prayer-granting pixies take pity on the stupid Christians and make some of their prayers come true too, just so they don't look so stupid. How would you experimentally be able to tell the difference? You couldn't. So this is just dumb.
So the onus on proving God is not upon me.
Yes, it is, because you're the one claiming that God is real. Who else would be responsible? Because we're right back to the burden of proof. You make the positive claim, you have to be able to back it up. You shouldn't believe it if you can't show that it's real in the first place. If you're sane or rational, which I think we understand otherwise, but the religious ought to be able to do this stuff before they claim to have faith. If you want other people to believe it, then you need to convince them with the evidence that you ought to already have for yourself. If you can't, then it's your fault, not theirs. This all comes down to making excuses for why they fail, because for them, it's all about fee-fees, not facts. They are convinced, for really bad reasons near universally, that their beliefs are true. They refuse to put those beliefs to the test. They just really like the idea. But really liking the idea doesn't mean anything, does it? Therefore, when they go to try to convince other people, they fail miserably because they've never had anything intelligent that convinced them in the first place. And that's the problem. If you have a rational position to begin with, then you should be able to present the exact same rational evidence that convinced you to others, and that should convince them to believe it too. So they're just doing everything wrong. Big surprise there.
It's upon you.
Nope, because I'm not the one making any claims. You are. This is just a desperate attempt to shift the burden of proof. I don't have to prove I'm right. You have to prove I'm wrong. Yeah, shut the fuck up. You are just making a fool of yourself. And if you go and look at the comments on this video, that's all he's doing. Everyone is laughing at him, and he's just screaming, "But it's all your fault!" No, it's not. It's yours, you ignorant imbecile. It's yours. That's why I knew that this whole thing would just fall apart the second that he brought up his dream example. You can see the fail coming a mile away. Now, I don't think he can possibly rationally justify that, but hey, let's give him a shot. We're actually going to have to cut this video in half, which is sad because it's a really short video, but there's just so much concentrated stupid here that it's going to be necessary. So he's got about 30 seconds to convince us that he's not a complete loon. And I really don't think he can do it, do you?
You are the one that needs to take your prayers to God.
You haven't proven there is a God yet, you idiot! How is this any different than me saying, well, you have to take your dreams to the pixies? Of course, I think prayer is stupid. You're just talking to yourself. But as an example, the pixies are every bit as well proven as his God is. Meaning not at all. Well, it sounds good to me doesn't mean anything. This guy is a moron, and that's not exactly a surprise, is it?
Then pray and he will answer you.
Really? Because Christian groups have done studies on prayer and they come to the exact same conclusion that everybody else does. Prayer doesn't work. The Templeton Foundation, a Christian group, did a large-scale study on prayer back in the early 2000s. They concluded that prayer not only doesn't demonstrably work, but that knowing that you're getting prayed for often causes worse outcomes due to poor expectations. Other studies, such as the study by Central State Healthcare Systems, said that the psychological benefits of prayer may help reduce stress and anxiety, promote a more positive outlook, and strengthen the will to live. But it also noted that practices like yoga and Tai Chi and using medication have the exact same positive impacts, meaning it's not the prayer that works, it's the psychology. God ain't doing shit. It's all in your head.
I can't do that. How can I prove God to you? If I could prove God to people, they'd all be worshipping me.
Why would anyone worship you? That makes no sense at all. Did anyone worship Albert Einstein when he proved that E equals MC squared? Of course not. That would be stupid. This guy just keeps proving that he's a loon. He's just asserting things that he can't demonstrate because he just really wants it to be true. But because he can't show that it is, he's just making excuses and pretending that it's not his fault that he fails, but it's everybody else's. This is insanely common among the religious, isn't it? They just really want to believe. That doesn't mean anything. It makes them look stupid, but they just really want it to be true. Seriously, stop making complete fools of yourselves. It doesn't help.
No, I'm just a worshipper. I'm just a Christian.
You're just an idiot. And this, I think, is a good place to leave it for the week. Seriously, I've been doing a lot of multi-part videos lately, and I was looking for something short and sweet that I could just knock out in one. Little did I know that this moron was going to have so many dumb, completely indefensible things to say that I'd have to stop every 4 words to debunk his dipshittery. And that's something else I've seen a lot lately. People who don't understand the concept of response videos, well, you should just shut up and let the video play. No, that's not the point. The point is to respond to these people. I provide a link to the original video if you want to go watch it clean. Go right ahead. Just stop making yourself look stupid by complaining about this stuff. Seriously, what the hell is wrong with you people? I really wish that I could just step back and let the video play for longer, but there's so much absurdly concentrated stupid going on that I just have to jump in and debunk it all. Use your brain, it really can't be that hard. If you disagree with me, great. Have something intelligent to say down in the comments. Bring your A game and stop making a fool of yourself. Because that would sure be nice, wouldn't it? They can't do it because they've got nothing. And as we all know, that's kind of sad. The religious spend all of their time embarrassing themselves, and today is no exception. You'd think they'd figure it out after getting laughed at, but part of standard theology is, well, they're just going to make fun of you. So they just keep dancing like trained monkeys for our amusement. Okay, if that's what you want to do, I'm game. So let's go watch some more stupidity. So we're back with Daily Corvid once again, as he puts his own religious ignorance on display. It's bizarre just how ignorant these people actually are, right? They're quick to proclaim, I know this, but they don't know the difference between knowledge and blind faith. And maybe that's why they sound so dumb all the time, I don't know. Anyhow, let's get back to it, because this is yet another example where the religious go wrong. Not that they care or anything, that's kind of pathetic, but here we go again.
But I can tell you this. It's irresponsible to put the onus of proof on other people when you're the one seeking the truth.
No, it's not. That's how this actually works. If you make a positive claim about reality, then it is your responsibility to back it up. You need to show that your claim is actually true and consistent with the real world. Now, the religious can't actually do that, which is the only reason they're making a fuss. If they had evidence, they'd be running around and shouting it from the mountaintops. You wouldn't be able to shut them up about it. I mean, granted, you can't shut them up now, but they're just embarrassing themselves with their complete lack of rational, defensible, or verifiable evidence, and that's the reason that people like this Daily Corvid or JCO Journey or whoever put this stuff up. They have to distract you from the fact that they've got nothing. If they had something, they just trot it out.
For if I say, I don't believe anything apart from evidence claims that have been validated, unless I go out and look for that evidence, what do I learn?
You act like we haven't already done that. I absolutely did that when I was ejecting Christianity from my life. That's why I did it. I sought out the evidence, and when evidence wasn't forthcoming, I rejected the beliefs as entirely unjustified. That's actually why I ask for evidence to this day. Because if there is something that I haven't already found, I want to know about it. You'd think this would be obvious to this Daily Corvid guy, but apparently not. We are asking you to justify your position, and you cannot do so. That makes you a laughingstock, and that's no real surprise, is it? That's why the religious are trying so hard to shift the burden of proof, because they've got nothing of any demonstrable value to say. It would sure be nice if they had anything to present, but I think we all know otherwise, because this is what you really need to do, and sadly in the case of the religious, they got shit.
Nothing. I've just falsified the world. And in falsifying the world, I learn nothing. I am ignorant, and I root myself into ignorance, and I will learn nothing forevermore.
Describing yourself there, huh? Because that's the problem. You know nothing. You believe a lot of crap, but you have no actual demonstrable knowledge to present. Knowledge requires some justifiable basis in fact, and you've got none of that. If you did, you could just present it when we asked. But you can't do that, can you? Wishes and dreams are not knowledge. Faith is not knowledge. It sounds good to me is not knowledge. That's why we're after your evidence, and you've got none to present. So we're right back at square one with this guy projecting. He assumes we haven't already been out there looking for evidence on our own, which I certainly have, and most atheists that I talk to, they have as well. I can't speak for everyone, but I don't really need to. That's why atheists tend to know a whole lot more about religion than the religious do. Because we've already been there. We know that your beliefs are bunk. Most of us held those beliefs at some time in the past. Now we're trying to get you there, and you're fighting against the real world. Stop being stupid.
So, in conclusion, is the onus of proof on the person making the claim?
Absolutely, 100%. Granted, that's not what he wants to hear, and I suspect in a second he'll deny it because he's an idiot. This is another video getting downvoted into oblivion, and Corvid admits he's censoring comments, so that's not exactly a surprise. Now, he did make a second video on this same subject. I've got no idea if it's worth doing, and at the moment, I don't really care. Nothing he's been saying has been at all impressive, but if you want me to take a shot at a second video, go ahead and let me know that down in the comments, and maybe I'll go take a look. Please try to justify it in some way, because wasting time on some idiot making a fool of themselves, I don't think that's a lot of fun, do you?
If it's a scientific claim, yes.
and claims about gods are scientific claims. I know the religious don't like that, but any claim about the objective state of reality, those all fall under the umbrella of science. Anything that is actually true in the real world, not in your head, but in the real world, that is a scientific claim. If you're going to pretend that God exists in or interacts with the real world, then it is a scientific claim, and you need to back it up with demonstrable evidence. Granted, I don't think it's limited to scientific claims. Any positive claim about reality is subject to the burden of proof if somebody cares enough to ask for support. Therefore, back it up. He can't, of course, which is why he's full of excuses. But we're not exactly surprised by that, are we?
Most definitely. But if you don't validate claims yourself, you will never learn truth.
We've already done that, and we already understand the truth. It's you that seems to have a problem. Speaking only for myself, because that's all I can do, I've been there and I've done that, and I have concluded, based on the evidence that I've seen, that all religions out there are fundamentally false, or at the very least not justifiably true. Now you come along saying that what you believe is true. Great, prove it. Because I've already done my due diligence, and you apparently haven't. Show me that you've done the same. And of course they can't do that because they're running on pure fifis and faith and nothing else of consequence. That doesn't impress me, and therefore I'm going to continue not believing you until you can come up with something else more convincing. And come on, we all know they can't. They're not even trying. They're just trying to shift the burden of proof to others, just like this guy is doing, because he can't be bothered to care about the actual facts. Because the facts are scary. And this guy is an idiot.
So, is the onus on learning truth on someone else? Or is the onus on you learning truth on you?
The burden of proof is always on the positive claimant. Stop being a moron. Of course, that's really all they can do, isn't it? They don't care about the facts, only their faith and fifis, and I'm sorry, but that is positively childish. Everything that comes out of this idiot's mouth is childish. That's a him problem. Granted, I've talked to enough theists over the years, thousands and thousands of them in fact, and this is abundantly clear. They are just making excuses for why they can't put up, and they sure the hell don't want to shut up. I'm right because I like it. No, you're an idiot. Grow the hell up. This is just self-imposed stupidity, and that is nothing to be proud of.
Well, that depends whether you want to learn or whether you want to be ignorant.
And you want to be ignorant. Obviously you do. Because I've already learned. I learned that your religion is idiotic, and I know more about your religion than you do. I learned that you have no evidence to back it up. You only have empty claims and an even emptier faith, and you just really want it to be true. You aren't remotely concerned whether it actually is or not. You're just making a fool of yourself, and this video is not doing you any favors. But I like it doesn't mean anything, and if you can't even learn that lesson, then you are doomed to a lifetime of ignorance. We are not like you. We're better. We've been there. We've done that, and we know far more about your religion than you do. We have the intellectual integrity to go out and check it out for ourselves, whereas you just rely on faith and fifis and cling to your beliefs uncritically because you are, in reality, nothing but a small, scared child. You have no rationality and you have no maturity whatsoever. What the hell is wrong with you?
That's the end of this video. So, in conclusion, truth is there to find. It is not anyone else's responsibility but yours to find it. And if someone brings you a claim, rather than just saying, well, I haven't seen the evidence, therefore it must be false, just think, when you have a dream, you will never be able to prove that you had that dream. but it will always be true.
Except that's not necessarily the case, is it? Honestly, he's still got another minute of video to go, and I have no clue what he's going to do. So if this turns out to be a really short video, my apologies. I can only gauge by the length of the video itself, and since I don't watch them ahead of time, occasionally I just get blindsided by stupidity. So let's just address what he said and see where it goes from there. Just because you think a thing happened, that doesn't mean it actually happened as you think that it did. This isn't just true of dreams, it's true of a lot of things. But it is what it is. Delusion is a thing. In fact, more people remember being at Woodstock than actually attended the thing at all. It was actually attended by about 400,000 people, but worldwide, about 20 million people remember being there. Instead, they saw footage, watched movies, were told stories, etc., 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 and their brains translated that into a remembered experience that wasn't actually real. This is not all that uncommon. Granted, it doesn't just translate well to dreams, necessarily anyhow, but it shows the inherent fallibility of your memories too. Lots of things that you think that you remember never happened at all. Your brain just fills in details, and your memory is only as good as the last time you recalled it. The people who are the most certain of their memories are the ones who are the least educated in how the memory actually works. And I think that describes this jackass, don't you?
And so therefore is God. If you pray, you'll have the evidence. I cannot give you the evidence. No one else can give you the evidence.
And that just proves it. I'll keep doing this as long as the content holds out, but I don't think we're going anywhere interesting, do you? Because I'm sure that he would reject it if somebody prayed to another god and said they got an answer right. The religious are always works for me, but not for thee. Because again, they don't care about the truth. They're just in it for the fee-fees. They hear voices in their head and they can't consider any other answer but God done it. Because that's the answer that they really want. So what if a believer in another religion prayed to their God and got the answer, the Christian God isn't real, I'm just fucking with him? Would this idiot believe it? Well, of course not. That's why looking at morons like William Lane Craig is so pointless. But I've got the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. Says who? Maybe you're just nuts. Ever think of that? Because I sure have. Because that seems to be much closer to reality than any of the other empty claims that these people make. Of course, that assumes he's not just lying for a buck, which Craig certainly seems to be doing, but I can't see into his head, so I'm not going to claim that he's only a con man, just mostly one. Because nothing he says is justifiable either, is it?
You have to seek the truth for yourself. When you do, you shall find it, and your ignorance shall end there.
And since we've already done that and found that your beliefs do not hold up in the real world, you're right, my ignorance ended there. That's why I'm not a Christian anymore. I did away with my ignorance and I joined the real world. How about you give it a shot? Unfortunately, this kind of falls into the Oprah-esque your truth bullshit. There is no your truth. There's only the truth. The truth that exists regardless of how you feel about it. And the religious tend to have a real problem dealing with that, don't they? Lots of people do. Too bad. The evidence shows that reality is what it is, and how you feel about it or wish was true, that doesn't matter. You do not have your own truth. You do not have your own reality. You only have delusions that deviate from the actual truth of the real world. You've got mental problems. Seek help.
So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learnt something. God bless you all. And I'll see you lovely people in the next one.
So that seems to be the actual end of it. Not that the last 30 seconds really added anything of substance. I'm not sure what more to add here because this entire thing was just a meandering load of nonsense end to end. It really seems to be another theist who is emotionally attached to their beliefs and really couldn't care less about objective reality. But since atheists point out just how poorly supported any of this is, he feels the need to make excuses and play make-believe because he really wishes it was true. That's how most religious videos work. Now, because this is going to be kind of short, and I'm sorry about that, but that's one of the downsides of not watching the videos ahead of time. When I'm writing responses, if I get a couple of minutes in and realize that it's utterly pointless or completely incoherent or whatever, I just delete it and go on to a different video. And there's probably about a quarter of all videos that I try to address that just go into the waste bin of stupidity. This was bad, but it's not nearly as bad as some that I see. And that's kind of a scary thought, isn't it? The religious really like the silly, irrational ideas in their heads, and they really want reality to conform. Sorry, but I don't care how you want things to be. I care about how they actually are, and that's why I'm after the evidence. And sadly, you just don't have any, at least none that you can present to anyone else, which is why you're playing the dumb my truth game and making a complete fool of yourself. Here's the stuff I really wish was true. Who cares if it isn't actually true? That's why these people are immature children living in adult bodies. Actual adults come to grips with the real world and accept reality as true, no matter how it makes them feel. That's why this guy is getting positively trashed. Not that he cares or anything, because he's just allergic to reality and the facts when they get in the way of his own emotional comfort. There is something really wrong with these people. I wish we could get them committed. At least then we wouldn't have to listen to their insane ramblings. And wouldn't that be nice?